Let's jump right into this explainer. For decades, the scientific community has viewed autism spectrum disorder almost entirely through a neurological lens. Basically, we've treated it as just a brain thing, right? But what if a massive piece of the puzzle is actually hiding somewhere completely different, like in our stomachs? Today, we're going to uncover the microscopic mystery that directly connects our gut to neurodiversity. To start, you really have to consider this staggering statistic. Nearly half, 48.67% to be exact, of all patients with ASD suffer from gastrointestinal complications. We're talking about things like chronic abdominal pain, severe diarrhea, constipation, and acid reflux. In fact, the incidence of these GI symptoms in children with ASD is actually 4 times higher than in the general population.
Which naturally leads us to a pretty crucial puzzle. Why is there such a massive overlap between a neurodevelopmental disorder and these really severe physical digestive issues? For the longest time, these stomach problems were just brushed off as an unfortunate separate side effect. But what if they aren't separate at all? What if they're actually a core biological mechanism driving the disorder itself?
As it turns out, these digestive symptoms definitely don't exist in a vacuum. It's a two-way street, creating this intense bidirectional cycle. When a child with ASD experiences painful gut symptoms, their behavioral challenges, like rigidity, hyperactivity, or social withdrawal, almost always spike. It is a continuous loop where the gut distresses the brain, and then the brain turns right around and distresses the gut. So, the first major clue in our investigation is dysbiosis. That's essentially a fancy word for when the gut's bacterial ecosystem is totally out of whack, deviating away from neurotypical development. Our gut is colonized early in life, right alongside the absolute golden period of childhood brain development. In ASE, research shows a huge drop in overall microbial diversity, plus a significantly decreased ratio of 2 major bacteria families, Bacteroides and Firmicutes, that normally keep the gut healthy. The whole ecosystem is just fundamentally shifted. And if you want proof of just how incredibly powerful these microbes really are, get ready for this. Researchers did something absolutely wild. They transplanted ASD gut microbiota into germ-free mice. Just by changing the bacteria in their stomachs, the mice actually began exhibiting hallmark autistic-like behaviors. The gut literally changed the brain. It's just a mind-blowing realization of how deeply our microbiome influences our neurology. So, here's the kicker. These bacteria aren't just sitting there acting alone. They are constantly churning out metabolites. Think of metabolites as microscopic chemical messengers traveling directly from your gut factory to the rest of your body. These tiny little molecules actually have the power to precisely regulate gene expression and fundamentally alter how neurons function up in the brain. When we dig into the metabolic profiles of ASD patients, we find a totally chaotic environment. It is almost like a metabolic crime scene in there. We're talking wildly altered levels of amino acids, a buildup of specific phenolic compounds, severely depleted secondary bile acids, and highly imbalanced short-chain fatty acids. Ultimately, this metabolic chaos cuts off the availability of essential nutrients that the brain absolutely needs to function properly. Take the amino acid category, for example. ASD patients show a dangerous depletion of serotonin in their intestines. And remember, serotonin is what normally helps keep the digestive system moving smoothly. Instead of making this helpful serotonin, the body takes a totally different metabolic pathway, creating an elevated kynurenine ratio. And these alternative compounds, they unfortunately act as a major trigger for serious neuroinflammation. We also see this toxic buildup of phenolic compounds like picrosol and 4-EP. These are essentially toxins that the body is struggling to filter out, which can actually induce autistic-like behaviors and scramble the connectivity between key brain regions, like the hippocampus and amygdala. Now, compound all of that with a massive lack of secondary bile acids, which slows digestion down to a painful crawl. That just gives the body even more time to absorb those exact same toxins. And the story gets even crazier with short-chain fatty acids. It's this striking, dangerous imbalance. On one side, you have an overabundance of toxic propionic acid, or PPA, which can literally cross the blood-brain barrier to damage neurons directly. And on the flip side, there's a severe deficit of protective butyrate, a compound that is absolutely crucial for neuroplasticity. Its absence directly impairs things like social behavior and memory formation. Now, you might be wondering, how do these chemicals actually reach the brain in the first place? Well, they travel along 4 distinct physical and chemical roads that make up what we call the gut-brain highway. You've got the endocrine route, the neural route, the immune pathways, and the body's natural physical barriers. Normally, these channels are supposed to filter and protect us, but in ASD, the signaling becomes deeply compromised. In a neurotypical state, this highway operates like a dream, smooth sailing with balanced neurotransmission and super robust defense walls. But in ASD, the entire system is heavily compromised by leaky barriers, rogue inflammatory markers, and a constant simmering state of chronic neuroinflammation that just throws the whole thing out of sync. Let's actually take these highways one by one, starting with the endocrine highway. Here, the HPA axis triggers a chronic stress response, pumping out excessive amounts of cortisol into the bloodstream. This massive surge of stress hormone causes microglia, which are basically the immune cells up in the brain, to get confused and inappropriately prune away vital, healthy neural connections, totally disrupting the central nervous system. Meanwhile, you have the vagus nerve. Think of it as a massive fiber optic cable directly connecting the gut to the brainstem, but here, its signaling gets completely scrambled. Thanks to an underdeveloped enteric nervous system and that delayed colonic transit we talked about earlier, the physical communication line between the stomach and the brain is essentially just transmitting static, which further drives emotional and behavioral abnormalities. Down the immune pathway, it's a very similar story of dysregulation. Imagine a severe inflammatory storm of cytokines, which are basically the body's immune alarm bells, specifically IL-6, IL-17, and TNF-alpha, just constantly ringing. This simmering immune activation cements a state of chronic neuroinflammation, fundamentally disrupting the normal healthy trajectory of a child's brain development. Ultimately, the protective walls just fail. This is what we call barrier breaches. The tight junctions in the gut break down, creating a leaky gut, and the usually impenetrable blood-brain barrier also loses its integrity. This double breach allows those neurotoxic metabolites we mentioned earlier, like P-cresol, to easily seep right out of the digestive tract and flood straight into the central nervous system. But hey, here is the incredibly hopeful news. As our understanding of this microscopic world grows, science is actually developing targeted ways to reprogram this gut factory. We are advancing through 4 major therapeutic steps that aim to correct this microbial imbalance and finally alleviate both the gastrointestinal and the neurobehavioral symptoms. First up, we have lifestyle foundations. Believe it or not, cognitively engaging exercises like martial arts or swimming, and specialized dietary interventions like gluten-free, casein-free, or high-fat ketogenic plans can actively reduce systemic inflammation. They actually optimize the gut's metabolic environment, literally starving out the harmful bacteria while feeding the beneficial ones. Next is fecal microbiota transplantation, or FMT. Okay, yes, we are talking about stool transplants. It sounds radical for sure, but it's a highly effective clinical solution. By transferring a healthy donor's microbiota, doctors can fully reconstruct the patient's microbiome. Studies show this can sustainably wipe out excess toxins like P-cresol and bring amazing long-term improvements to both digestion and core behavioral symptoms. Finally, there's the highly targeted approach of prebiotics and probiotics. By introducing specialized prebiotic fibers or specific probiotic strains like Bifidobacterium, we can directly work to restore neurotransmitter balance, lower inflammation, and literally help repair those leaky intestinal walls from the inside out. As we look to the horizon, the future of this field is all about personalization. By combining artificial intelligence with multi-omics, which basically means looking at all of a patient's biological data at the exact same time, we can finally move past generic, one-size-fits-all treatments. AI is going to help map a patient's exact microbiota to tailor these microscopic therapies directly to the individual. So, I want to leave you with this final thought to really ponder. What if the key to deeply personalized, highly effective care for neurodiversity has literally been hiding in our digestive systems this entire time? It's pretty amazing to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep exploring the incredible connections within the human body.